Real stories,
Real people.
Real heroes.
the Real Heroes Network.
All right, what up, what up? What's going on, everybody out there? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Real Heroes. You're on the Real Heroes Network. I'm your host, Jesse, aka Blessy Caban. Once again, thank you for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, comment to the video down below. I've been getting a lot of positive feedback today, or tonight rather. This will be my 5th upload, and I have a very special guest with me here today. This is Mr. Ed Arnold. Ed, how's it going tonight?
Good. How are you?
I am fantastic. So before we kind of get into why Ed is here tonight, I figured I would give some background. So me and Ed met, I want to say, like 3 years ago. Well,
Maybe.
No, officially.
Yeah.
So we've bumped into each other in some meetings and stuff at work. We both work for the same company. And a few years ago, me and my district manager at the time had created this class called Leadership Development. And we are co-facilitators in this class. And basically, that class is all about developing our future leaders, our managers, people who want to step up into leadership roles. And in this class, we develop just different, seminars and things that we discuss that really prepare the high performing individuals who are in this class for those types of roles in the future. So Ed here is a high performer, and he was in our first year of leadership development, and he ended up graduating from that class and is on his way. Actually, before we started recording, Ed's on his way doing some really big things. But it was funny because in that class, I had known Ed previously before we got in there, but just the way that me and my leader do things is we get very personal. We aren't just facilitators for the company that we work for, but we also like to help develop people skills and really get to know who you are in your core and as a person. And we really make sure we break down those walls that you build up. And I feel like we got to know everybody in the class really, really well. Well, fast forward, the class graduates, careers are shuffling around, and I end up moving and managing the branch that Ed was working for. So me thinking I knew him from class, we started to have some really good conversations. And in those conversations, we uncovered a lot, so much more about each other that we didn't know. And so I am no longer in that branch. I'm currently working somewhere else right now. But when I started doing this YouTube channel and doing these interviews, Ed was one of the first people that I thought of. But I didn't want to reach out right away because his story has so many layers to it. And I always want to make sure that I'm, just making sure people are comfortable telling their stories. Everybody has a great story, whoever interviewed so far. But I never want to make someone uncomfortable just for the sake of views or just getting people to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I always want to make sure it's a collaborative effort and the person speaking feels comfortable talking about some of the things that we're going to be talking about here. And so finally, I gathered up the courage to reach out to Ed, thinking he was going to be like, well, I don't really know. And he was extremely humbled by it. So that is what brings us here tonight. Ed, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to our background. I know that was a very quick run through of it.
No, I think it's a pretty good introduction. We, I think when you came to our branch, we got kind of close in leadership development, but there were so many people there.
Yeah.
But when you came to my branch, I don't know. We were just very comfortable with each other right from the get-go. I think it was very obvious, and we kind of bounced things off each other all the time. So, and I made some assumptions that weren't always true. And
one thing I learned, I mean, this is a lesson that you learn in life over and over and over again, but I learned it like for sure for like the last time in life is never judge a book by its cover. I definitely learned that becoming friends with Ed, and it worked out really nicely. It was coming to a new market, a new branch. A lot of people didn't know who I was, and me and Ed having that previous relationship, he made that transition a lot smoother for me. And even now that I'm not working in that branch, me and Ed still exchange emails. he is still someone who I regard as a very good coworker, very good friend, and that is what brings us here tonight. Ed is honored to be here. I am honored to have Ed here. So enough about me. This has nothing to do with me. I'm tired of hearing myself talk. Let's get to you, Ed. So, I guess tell us a little bit about your background. Where are you from? Where did you grow up, and what was early life like for you?
Okay. I grew up. Well, I was born in Schuylkill County in Shenandoah. And when I was probably 3 or 4, we moved out to Pittsburgh. And that's where I kind of went to grade school and stuff like that. My dad's job kind of moved him around quite a bit. He was a nuclear specialist. So like all the nuclear plants that they were building and stuff like that, he kind of went in there and inspected them. So we moved around quite a bit here and there. And then I think maybe high school, maybe, or right before high school, we moved back to the area, and then we kind of just settled here then. My dad kind of switched jobs, and so I graduated all the way back in 1993, and did what the typical kids did in this area, I guess. Bush parties, and went out drinking with friends, and just hang out. And then I ended up meeting my now ex-wife, and we were married pretty young. I believe I was 21 when I got married, 21. And when we got married, she was already 6 months pregnant. So we were parents very young too. So it was tough. And
wasted no time, Ed.
No. And then our second child was born just 14 months after. So we had them pretty much back to back. Although we still get along today, it was definitely a tumultuous marriage. Just because I was fighting with my own inner demons. So, and that unfortunately reflected on our relationship at the time. And we were only married a little over 4 years, but it seemed like 40 because it was just like, it was that bad. So, and she would agree, and she would laugh about this too. I mean, we have a great relationship today, but because of, it took a while, but because of the honesty and just understanding each other's situations, and she's very happy now, and I'm very happy now, and that's all that matters.
No, was the initial marriage set up? Did it have to do with the pregnancy? Was it like family pressure, a little combination of everything?
It was not really so much family prep. My parents did not want me to get married, but her parents. I think my mom always knew that being married to a woman just wasn't what I was supposed to do. But her parents, they were very religious at the time, and and it was already an embarrassment that she was pregnant before we were married, so they forced it, and it was just more social. I thought that's what I had to do because of social acceptance, and I just had to repress what I was feeling and just do what I was supposed to do.
How early on were you when you started to have those feelings, or realize you're like, I don't know if this is normal, but this is what I'm feeling right now?
I can remember all the way back to before I was in kindergarten, believe it or not,
Wow.
that I was like, I always, I don't know, had this attraction to my male friends who, it might have not have been sexual at that point in time, but there was always just this attraction to my male friends where I saw them differently than I saw my female friends.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I got older, I realized that all my friends that I felt comfortable hanging out with were all female. I had no male friends because I didn't know how to form that bond with any of my male friends, because I think in the back of my mind, maybe I was afraid that if I got too close to them, then I would start having feelings for them, and how was that going to happen? So I surrounded myself with women, or girls, all the time. So all the way through high school, even now, I think I have more female friends than I do male friends. But
now, was it through high school? I'm sure you've been in relationships with women before. Obviously, you're married to one. Now, when when you were in those relationships, you're thinking about what the societal norm was at that time. Because I mean, also for everybody listening, you know, Ed said he graduated in what, 93. So
93.
you know, this was a very different point in time in society right now, where things were much less accepted back than they are right now. So what was it like having those feelings and knowing that it looked down upon in a sense?
It was literally hell every day. I wasn't super feminine, but I had those moments like where it would come out every once in a while, or like where I won't really say feminine, but where my mannerisms were like different than most of my straight friends.
Yeah.
And so I got teased a lot in school. I had some good friends, but I got bullied a lot in school. I got teased a lot in school, and that just made me repress it even more, because I was like, there's no way that I'm going to tell everybody what I'm feeling. So that made me, you know, you fake it till you make it, kind of.
Yeah. Then did you feel pressure to be in relationships with women, or was it ever a thought where you were like, well, maybe I don't necessarily have to tell people how I'm feeling, but I also don't have to be in relationships with women. I can kind of be in the middle. Or was it like a pressure where you're like, no, I need people to really believe that like I'm feeling differently?
I think certainly there was pressure for me to have a girlfriend all the time, just so that I can put on kind of like that blanket, so that nobody would really know the true me, and it threw people off, so like I always had a girlfriend from the time I was probably 13 or 14 until I got married. And there was never a point where I didn't have a girlfriend. So I think I did kind of use them as a cover, sort of.
Now, talk to me about being in a relationship with a woman and having zero attraction to being in to me. And I don't laugh because it's funny. It's just it's so interesting to be in those situations, and I don't have experience with that. But I mean, I think everybody can resonate with being in a situation that you kind of put yourself in to kind of prove something, even though you find no fulfillment out of that situation you put yourself in. So, what was that like?
Well, my ex-wife was the only woman I was ever intimate with. So my other girlfriends, I always kind of like, I would make up excuses, or like, you know, like, oh, I don't want to do this until I get married, or like so I would use religion as my kind of like facade. But believe it or not, when I met my wife, and like as we got closer, it wasn't hard to be intimate with her. I think because for me, sex was always about trust. If I trusted the person, I could be attracted to the person. And then people were like, well, people always say to me when I say it to them, well, then you're bisexual. No, I'm not bisexual. It's just that I guess I'm a good actor. I don't know. Like I could just like kind of like, I don't know. But no, it's just like, I think because her and I were so close and we were such good friends before we got married, like and I'm not gonna lie, the first time that when I lost my virginity with her, I had to drink a fifth of whiskey to do it. So like, and how it even happened, I don't even know. And that's a whole other interesting story, which I'll tell you off camera.
There we go. Keep this rated at least PG-13. At least PG-13.
So, but it's a funny story. But so like, but then as I got more comfortable with her, it wasn't hard. It wasn't that I wasn't attracted to her, because I was attracted to her as a person, but not as her sex. You know what I mean? Like
I could understand that, though, because for you, it wasn't necessarily, it was easier for you, I guess, in a sense, because you didn't have that attraction as someone that you necessarily desired, but that was the first, more than likely, probably the first woman you ever loved on that deep of a level, even if it wasn't someone you wanted to spend the rest of your life with, someone that you at least loved enough to put on the facade that you wanted to get married and thought about planning your life out with this person. So I could see that.
Yeah. So so I wouldn't say it was never really difficult. I mean, obviously I had 2 children, so like, and we were able to, but but I always knew, like, it was just so weird. Like it's just in the back of my mind, it just didn't feel right. Like there was always that I can't even describe it, almost as like something was missing, but I knew what it was, but didn't want to admit what it was at that point in time in my life.
So at this point in life, you are in your early to mid 20s, you're married, you have 2 kids, and from the outside looking in, it would look like you have a normal, pretty good life. Everything's happy. You have 2 healthy children, wife, and on the inside, you're the only person who really knows what you're feeling. What is it like to look back on it and be like, damn, I was really in that situation.
It's tough because you're literally living 2 lives. You're living the one that you're physically living, and then in the back of your mind, you're always living the one that you want to live. And they're completely opposite things. And it was really tough. Like, I look at it now, and I'm like, and I say to myself, if I had to go through that now at the age I am now, and it's the period of my life that I am now, I don't know how I would have stayed sane, or how I could stay sane. But again, I go to church all the time, and I literally lived across the street from my in-laws, so like you kind of had to like keep up appearances. And my mom, I like, before she passed away, my mom, I think she just always knew. In fact, she told me that she always knew, like, before she died, but because she just really was set against me getting married. And like, although she treated my ex-wife very kindly, but she just knew that wasn't what I was supposed to do.
It's mother's intuition.
Yeah. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me before? Like, like it would have been so much easier. My life would have been so much easier if you just would have came to me. But I mean, and my coming out story isn't the best story, but it's not how I would have wanted to come out, but it's my story, and I own it. And if it would have been left up to me, it would have been done a little bit differently. So
now, was there, as the year started to go on, was there speculation that started to kind of creep in, or was it more so something that was just weighing on you so heavily? You're like, you know what, I have to do this.
Actually, it wasn't, when my marriage split up, it wasn't because of me and my feelings. It was because my ex-wife was unfaithful many times, and I found out about it, and that's kind of what broke us apart. So I didn't act on my feelings until after my divorce was final.
Oh wow.
So not even once. So but I knew once my divorce was final, I knew that I was never going back there again.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't really like my inner demons that tore us apart. I mean, she could have maybe sensed it a little bit, and that could have pushed her away from me. Like, so I'm not putting all the blame on her. I mean, we both were young, immature. I was gay, she was straight. So
yeah, kind of a big deal,
So I'm sure there. I mean, we lived together, so I'm sure there had to be signs maybe that I didn't even realize I was giving off. But it's just like the last year of our marriage was bad. So like abusively bad. So like it was tearing us apart. Not only as the relationship, just as people. And it wasn't a good environment for our daughters to be in. And we finally just realized that, and we split, and it was very amicable. We didn't go to court. We signed divorce papers, and we figured out our own custody agreements, and that was it. So
when you're divorced, you're split, things are official now, and you are back out in the world, back out on that dating scene. However, you are now comfortable with, I guess, listening to those feelings and that voice inside that was kind of leading you to what you've wanted all this time. What was that like? Was it like a weight being lifted off of you?
It was scary at first. So like the night that I decided, I had some gay friends who lived in the area, and so the night that I had left my wife, I just walked out. I had called one of my gay friends. They were a couple, and I'm like, I have nowhere to go. They're like, come stay with us. So for the first year after my marriage, I stayed with them. They were a couple. completely separate bedrooms, like never crossed those lines with them. But they were instrumental in helping me become comfortable with who I was. And I still look, they're not together anymore today, but I still look up to both of them extremely, and I still talk to both of them separately, obviously. But they were kind of like the two who kind of guided me through the transition year, or and I couldn't be more grateful, because a lot of people don't have that. So a lot of people don't have that support.
Were those the first people you came out to?
Them, and there was like a group of, it was them, and we had a small group of friends who used to meet, like, and have, like, we used to have little house parties and stuff like that. So they all knew in the beginning. So, like, right down the street from where we used to live, there was this old queen who always used to throw these house parties, and his name was Bill, but we called him Mary, and that's kind of like where the hub of, like, where we would meet. Like, we'd have Christmas parties there, Halloween parties there, so on and so forth. And that's eventually where I ended up meeting Jim, who is my current husband. So
when you ended up coming out to everyone, did you have anyone say, "I knew it," or "This whole time I knew it," or "Look at you, crazy for being married with children"? What were the reactions like?
My mother. That's the first. My mother. When I came out, I came out to one of my cousins originally, because I thought I can trust her, because we were really close, and I literally hung up the phone, and she ended up calling my mom and my sister and outing me to them.
Jeez.
So then my mom and they're both calling me, like, this is so and so said this, and what's going on, and blah blah blah. But at this point in time, I've already been living with my boyfriend for over a year, but they thought we were roommates, and so I kind of got pushed out of the closet in that sense. And at first I denied it, and I was like freaking out. I mean, literally had a complete meltdown. For about 4 hours. I just sat there and I just sobbed, and because I didn't know what I was going to do. And then finally I called my mom back up, and I just said, "It's true. Like, I can't do this anymore. It's true." And she's like, and her response was, "I've always known, and I love you. I don't know why you haven't told me sooner.
That's awesome.
But you need to come to dinner this Friday and talk to your father." So, so I did that, and I thought my dad was one of the people I was most scared to come out to. So I showed up to dinner that Friday, and I can still remember everything my mom made and everything we ate, and it was a long time ago. And after dinner, I just said to my dad, "I need to talk to you." And he said, and I told him, and he just kind of stood there and looked at me I didn't know what he was going to do. For a good 30 seconds, he just kind of stared at me, and he's like, "Well, are you finally happy?" And I said, "I really am." He's like, "Well, then that's all that matters." So, awesome. which was not the response I was expecting to get. I thought my dad was going to blow through the roof. And he's like, "So is it Jim?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's Jim." He's like, "Well, I really like him." He's like, "And I think he's way better for you than she ever was." So, and that was just what he said to me.
What was it like hearing that? I mean, you've got to be in a state of shock.
I was. I think I just stood there in silence for a little while, and then I just sat down and I just cried. I just literally just melted, like, and
shit, you got me about to cry
again. Yeah,
got me emotional.
And
it's just and again, not to cut you off, but you hear the horror stories. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm sure you've heard tons of them, but I've had friends and family members, and you hear the horror stories of people coming out. I have I told you about my cousin. And I won't mention any names here because I didn't ask if I could tell the story or not. But I've always known he was gay. I've always known. Since we were kids, his mannerisms, his friends, just everything about him. And I never had an issue with it, but he just refused to admit it. And he was always a ladies' man. He had tons of girlfriends. He was always getting into fights with people. And I think that was his way of proving his manliness to everyone. But really, it was just his anger at not being able to express who he really was inside. And these are things that I learned later in life. And I think I think I was about 21 years old. I think he was like 19 or 20. And my mom was like, oh, your cousin got really drunk at the Christmas party and just told us that he was gay. And I'm like, okay. Like I've always known that. I was like, I wonder what took him so long. At this point, he has, I think, a 2 or 3 year old daughter. He's been with his girlfriend for a while. And he just kind of came out, and it wasn't a shock to me. What was more of a shock was my reaction when everyone told me, as if I was supposed to like be surprised at something, but I really wasn't. And for the most part, everyone was really supportive, but his grandparents or my grandparents are really old school. So he did not come out to them right away. It took years for him to come out to my grandfather. And even at that, when he did, it was not a positive response. Now they had a great relationship now. Rest in peace. My grandfather passed away a couple of months ago. But they had a great relationship, but it took a very long time. He was not welcome in the house. There was a lot of arguing. He would bring boyfriends over to parties and he just refused to acknowledge them. Like it was tough. It was really tough. And so, it takes a lot of bravery to be living a life and decide that, enough is enough. I want to start to be my true self and be who I am on the inside, because this is really what's going to make me happy, and still understand what the consequences could be. And so to hear that you had, at least from your parents, a positive outcome it makes me feel really good. We're really, really happy that you had that experience, because I honestly think that could make or break someone's decision to live a certain type of life. It's what is the reception going to be like?
And they were the only ones who were really that important to me. Like my brother and sister, although I cared about what they thought, my parents were the ones that were most important to me, because I never wanted to let my parents down. And that's what, in my head, I thought, if I tell them what the truth about me, I'm giving them the biggest letdown in the world. Even though I already have children, no parent back then you would think would want to hear that that their son's gay or that their daughter's gay. And so my biggest fear was of letting them down. And I not everybody reacted that well to my news. There were some family members who to this day don't acknowledge the fact that I'm married, and never will. And I don't care because
you don't need those people.
No, well, and they're not disrespectful about it, but they've told me straight out that they'll never like view me as married, and that's okay, because it only matters to me, and it matters to God, and it matters to the government. I mean the Supreme Court says I'm married, so, and none of my relatives are gonna trump them. So
as long as you and Jim are happy, that's the most important thing. Mm-hmm. What was it like? Okay, so let's transition now from your parents and back to telling your kids. I mean, I'm sure that was probably nerve-wracking for you, or maybe it wasn't. What was that conversation like?
Well, it's actually kind of funny, because when my kids were quite young, like 7 or 8, I got full custody of them, just because my ex-wife moved away, like about an hour away, and we didn't want to pull them out of school, and I was still living in the district, so I just kind of gained custody of them. And so they were always having sleepovers at their friend's house and stuff like that, and then they'd want to have a sleepover at my house, and I would always be hesitant, because I'm like, well, what are they going to go back and tell their parents, or so. So they were probably in high school before I let them have those sleepovers. And I never really came out and told them until Jim and I decided to get married. And that was right after in 2013, when marriage equality was passed in New York. We were just like, for legal reasons, we wanted to get married to protect ourselves legally. So we decided we were going to get married, and I'm like, well, I can't do this without the girls. And I think they knew, but we never officially told them. I mean, obviously we were living together for quite a long time. Like we were living together for 13 years before we got married.
Oh,
so,
wow.
yeah. So I think it was 12 years maybe. But anyway, so he's like, okay. So I sat them down. It was the week we got married on a Tuesday in New York, and I sat down with them that weekend. I'm like, okay, so this is what's happening this Tuesday. I'm going to give you the opportunity. If you want to go, you can go. If you don't want to go, I completely understand, and there'll be no hard feelings. They're like, what are you talking about? And I told them that, that I was gay and that Jim and I were getting married. And they literally screamed and jumped up and down and like, of course you want to go, of course. And so like,
That's awesome.
yeah. So Jim's been around them since they were in diapers. So like he was just always part of the family anyway. So so we got married at the Justice of the Peace. I invited my mom was passed away at the time, but I invited my dad, who was ill at the time, and my brother and sister, and then my cousin, a couple of my best friends. Unfortunately, nobody from my family came, but except for my daughters and my niece, I'm sorry, and then and my two best friends were there. So like it was just a small group of us. We went and got married. And then we spent the day in New York just sightseeing and then my best friends took my daughters home while we stayed in New York to just for like a not really honeymoon, but just to have that night to kind of unwind and celebrate. So yeah, they were
Awesome.
excited. They've never given me any pushback. And then I later found out that their friends always knew. So like when they were asking me to have these sleepovers, and if I'm like, well, she's like, well, we were just waiting for you to tell us, and like and we knew why you didn't want our friends over, but we still wanted them to come over. So yeah, so I never really got any pushback from them. So I think they just always knew.
What was that feeling like, getting married for the second time, but knowing that this is really what you've always wanted? This is just everything that you've been hiding for so many years up until this point. Now you're finally there on that day, and you're just like, what was that feeling like?
It was liberating, and for more reasons than not just because I was finally marrying who I always wanted to marry, but because it was so historic. Like, I never thought in my lifetime that I would be alive when it was legal to have 2 men, 2 women get married. Never. If you would have told me that when I was younger, I would have laughed in your face. I just never thought I'd live to see it. So when it came around and looked like it was really happening, it was just kind of like I started getting excited about it, and I was like praying for it to pass, and so when it finally passed, obviously in a state that was near us, and then we found out that once it passes, if we got married in another state, once it passed, on a Supreme Court level, then that marriage license carries over to the state of Pennsylvania. So that's when we decided to go to New York. But yeah, the feeling was it just felt like it was something bigger than what we were. So, and I think because of the time and because of what was going on and because there were so many people who wanted to get married for so long but couldn't. And
oh my gosh, yeah.
So
I have cousins of mine who got married in DC, Washington, DC, when it first became legal there, and people were traveling all over the place to try and get married. So I can only imagine what that was like.
Yep. It was great to be part of that. And finally, and like, what really bothered me is, I don't know if you're like familiar with, have you ever watched the documentary Bridegroom?
I don't believe so.
It's on Netflix. So I don't remember the gentleman's name, but it's about these two, this gay couple who were together for, I think it was almost like 10 years or something like that. So they were together, and they had a party at their apartment. His boyfriend went up to the roof and ended up accidentally falling off the roof, and of this, like, I forget how many story building, but ended up hitting the ground and was in a coma. And their parents lived like across country. So he got rushed to the hospital as an ICU and wasn't going to make it. And because they weren't legally married and they weren't legally related to each other, the hospital that he was at would not let his boyfriend in to see him, and he died alone. And my biggest fear was dying alone. Not that I want a whole bunch of people watching me, but or for the person I love to be in the ICU somewhere, and because we're not legally married, for me not be able to hold their hand while they're taking their last breath. Like,
such a shame.
And so I recommend. I mean, not that I have no like plugging this whatsoever, but watch that documentary. It'll change your life.
You heard Ed. You heard Ed. It is on Netflix. It is called Bridegroom. Everyone who watches this video, please watch the documentary. Comment on the video below. I want to know what you guys think of it. I'm going to watch it tomorrow.
Cool. So, and then everybody's familiar with the Matthew Shepard story.
Mhm.
I actually have
I remember that was one of the first things that we had an in-depth conversation on when I got to the branch that we were both working at, as you told me about that. And that was, I still haven't gotten through the whole thing because that's just, that's tough to watch, man. It's really tough to watch when you hear what happened. Do you want to, for those of you who aren't familiar, do you want to tell them what it is?
Sure. So Matthew Shepard was a 22, 23-year-old gay man who lived in Laramie, Texas, who went out one night to a bar. Some guys hit on him. He went home with them, and they drove him out into the middle of a field and beat him to death and tied him to a fence and left him there for, I believe it was 72 hours, something like that, before somebody found him. Which is also, there's also a documentary on Netflix about him as well. But him and I share a mutual friend. His best friend, I am now friends with as well. And just hearing that story firsthand from her, knowing that she knew him and that she was there, like she was at his funeral. When you watch if anybody watches that documentary, she was actually the one who created the I forget what she calls it, the Angels of Hope. So you know how the South is at that Baptist church that always protested every gay march, whatever. Well, she got tired of them doing so she created these angel costumes made out of sheets and PVC pipe, and whenever they would go to protest something, her and her group would stand in front of them so that they couldn't see what was going on beyond their these angel costumes. So hearing her tell these stories and stuff like that, it changed my life as well. So but these are the reasons why I'm such an advocate now, of not just because I'm gay, but because I hear these stories and nobody should have to live through this stuff, and nobody should have to deal with this stuff. And and especially in 2020, I mean, look what we've been through. Like, people should be able to love who they love. I mean,
I'm glad you brought that up, because you touched on it a few different times. But being someone who was born in one era, was a teenager and a young adult in another, and then being where we are right now and seeing how openly gay marriage is accepted and those relationships are, and all the rights that everyone has now. What has it been like to live through and witness some of the things that have been happening, and the differences between 80s, 90s, and then where we are today?
It's surreal. I still think we have so far to go, but especially we live in a very, very small town kind of backwards area.
Yes, we do.
And luckily we work for a company who advocates for diversity and inclusion across the board and support us in doing so. And what really shocked me, because being on one of those boards for our LGBTQ network, was this in Tamaqua this past summer, decorating our branch in rainbow flags. I actually had a woman say she was going to call the police on me, and it was illegal to post those flags. And I was called some nasty things. And although we've leaped so far forward, there's still those people that are stuck back in that era that I grew up in, and it's a shame.
It's one of those things. It's like a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's unfortunate because it's just you're never going to be able to change everyone's opinion. You're never going to be able to get everyone on the same page to really, even if they don't agree with something, just accept that it is a right and a privilege that people have. And then on the other hand, my brain's like, you know what? Fuck them. I don't even care. And I don't mean to sound cold or anything, but with everything that we've been through, especially this year alone, love your neighbor, love everybody out there. Like what good is it going to do you to have bitterness in your heart to someone who, I mean, whatever choices anyone makes in their life, it's not affecting mine. You know what I mean? Like I don't care. I've been a huge advocate, and has been all my life, but a huge ally, I should say, for the LGBTQ community. I'm on the Pride Network at work. I've contributed to like the floats and then just anything I can do to kind of help give back, especially now. And I think in large part it's because when I was younger, wasn't exposed to it very much. Like I had a feeling that some friends and family members might have been, but it's just not something, at least in my household, that was brought up very much. So it's like, okay, I'm not really educated on it. I'm just going to make my guesses from like movies and TV shows and whatever kids tend to talk about. And so being, I guess, not having a lot of education and being naive to some things and just kind of ignorant to others, I wasn't always the nicest person to people from different walks of life and backgrounds that I didn't understand. And I feel like as I started to get older and learned a lot about bullying, kind of witnessed things firsthand and saw, my cousin, for instance, and some of the things that he had to go through, it made me feel like a bad person for not just doing more to understand some of these people and doing more to embrace them and really learn about how hard it actually is for them to be in society, especially when you have, again, presidents like we just got done having. I'm not going to get political, but people who are just so ugly and so nasty. And it's just like, how could you feel that way about another human being? I just don't understand. And so a few years ago, I don't know, I just kind of made it my mission to just, I say more than a few years ago, but I don't know, I just made it my mission to learn more, to understand more. I had heart-to-heart conversations with my cousin. We went out to gay bars together, and in those moments, I've never had more fun in life than going out to a gay bar. I'm just gonna put it out there. If no one has done it, if no one has done it before, you have to go. I've been to drag shows, and those are the times that I have some of the best nights of my life because it's so open, it's so accepting. Everyone there is just there to have a good time. No one's judging anybody else. It feels so differently than going out anywhere else. And when I experience that, I'm like, I need to do more. I need to be better. Like, I need to be better. I need to make it more of a priority for myself to be an ally and not just have the title, but actually do work to contribute to making sure that everyone feels accepted and that they can be themselves. And that I took that attitude into leadership development, and Elena has the same attitude as well. And I think that was the outcome, that everybody ended up getting. So not to get on my soapbox up here, but I'm just, I don't know, I'm just very listening to you tell your story. It's just it's brave. It's so brave. And these are the interviews that I really enjoy doing because there's so many people like you and people that I'm interviewing here that just don't, I don't want to say get the credit they deserve, but they just have stories to tell that really make an impact in people's lives. And everyone's looking for motivation, everyone's looking here, there, and everywhere for a story or for someone to really inspire them. And I'm like, these people are your neighbors, these people are your friends, your family, your coworkers. You just need to be open to having these conversations with them. So I just wanted to drop that in there. I appreciate you coming on and talking, because I guarantee someone, even if it's just one person, is going to listen to this and be like, man, like that was extremely brave of him. I need to do that. And even if it's not the same topic, it's just living your truth. That's what today's episode about. I know everybody wants to talk about, might listen to this, might think it's about coming out and all these other things. And that's great. Live your truth. But that's what today's episode is about. Living your truth, whatever that may look like. Sorry, I completely got off topic right there, but I just got
I agree. Like,
that.
and like your question was about how I feel like how far we've come.
Yes.
The way I see it is, this country, or this world has spent hundreds of years building this ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
Look what we've done in the past 10, 15, 20 to unravel it. So and we, not to get political either, but we can have people in as leaders who in my opinion are just freaking idiots, who try to unravel that the rights of people, or try to spread that ignorance. But the ball's already rolling. You can roll it back as much as you want. It's still going to push forward. And we just have to have the patience and the perseverance to keep pushing it forward. And which is why I was even honored that you asked me to do this. Like, there's no way I would have said no. I've always been an open book. And if one person hears me and it makes a difference, it's worth it. So
it's always been my motto. Always been my motto. When I first started, podcasting and then doing the YouTube channel, I was like, well, I don't really know if anyone's going to listen in. Who cares what I have to say? I was like, and talking to family and friends, I'm like, you know what? If it's just one person, if it's only one person who's like, damn, like that was inspiring. I can listen to that and do something with that. Then that's completely worth my time. I will do this every single week until I have nothing left to give. If it just means I'm helping at least one person.
Yeah, makes it worth it. So
Ed, do you have any last words? Anything else that you would drop in? Anything at all? Anyone who's thinking about coming out? Anyone who's not living their truth? I mean, what advice would you give?
I would tell people to lean on the people they trust. It might not always be the people you want to trust, but the people you can trust, and tap into resources if you are having trouble, or if you're having issues, or because the problem with even teens today, or even anybody today, young adults today coming out, is because people in the LGBT community are so repressed or so shunned sometimes, it causes mental health issues for people, which then can lead to suicide, drug use, or whatever. Reach out and get that help, because there are people out there who are more than willing to hold your hand and walk you through it. And never give up. Don't quit. And like you said, be you. And don't be afraid to be you, because for everybody that hates you, there's 10 people that'll love you for it.
Yes, I'm so happy you said it. Took the words right out of my mouth. Live your truth. It's something that we talk about in leadership development. It's something that I, as a manager and just as a person, talk about in general to people. Life is too short to be somebody else. You were put on this earth to be exactly who you are. Loved by many, hated by many. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you're never going to feel that sense of fulfillment unless you're living your truth. At the end of the day, it's all about living your truth.
And I was just, this is really funny, but I would just say to my daughters too, if someone throws hate at you, be like Wonder Woman, just be like, pew, pew, and just like.
I love that.
Push it away, because
Ed,
it's not worth it.
I thoroughly appreciate you coming on with me. You are someone I look up to, just because I don't know, the more and more that I think about your story and just that time period and where you were in life when you decided to come out, like that is, I can't even fathom. Just like I was thinking about your story, I was like, how did he do that? Like, it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of bravery, and just a lot of trust in your truth, and to know that at the end of the day, this is what's going to make you happy. So I appreciate you coming on, Ed. I appreciate you being an open book. And I can guarantee you that I know we're only looking to help one person, but this is definitely going to be something that helps so many people out there. So I appreciate it. And for anyone who is listening, I apologize for that voice in the background. My 3.5-year-old has been doing such a good job at trying to be quiet, and I am going to let her say goodbye and close our episode today. Liliana, come here, baby. Come here. I apologize. I didn't brush her hair, so I'm going to get flagged for this. Come here. Come on. We're live. Come on. Here. All right, Liliana, come on.
I don't want to.
Here, say that's all, folks. Say bye-bye. Okay. All right, go. All right. Well, thank you for tuning into today's episode, Ed. I will be in touch, and thank you for coming on again. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.